Hey, folks, welcome back to the Land Fixer podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Logan Swanson. We are greeted and joined by Jason Lafferty. Say hi to the camera.
Hello, hello. How we doing?
Glad to have you here. Thanks for being here. We're excited to have you. Folks, remember, if you need any funding for your land development projects, entitlement projects, land flips, anything that is flat and not vertical, please reach out to me. You can find us at landpartnerfunding.com, or you can reach out to me directly at thelandfixer at gmail.com, and I would be happy to work with you. Jason, please inform folks why you're here or what you do. You're actually a pretty unique guest for us. We haven't had a lot of folks that actually know how to move dirt.
Oh,
So I think you'll have a lot of insight for us.
wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, I'm a RV park guy. We have a construction arm and a third-party park property management side. So I'm just trying to position myself as a really good RV park operator and just always been an enthusiast in that space. Was it 3 or 4 years ago? I finally got an SBA loan and took a little hobby of starting a little park and then end up doing a 60 site park. Told my brothers and some family members to quit their jobs in construction. I'm like, we're starting a family business and you're gonna love it. It's gonna be great. And then, now we're here 3 or 4 years later, in the middle of a $2.2 million development as just as a contractor, not a partner. But pretty much we built two, bought two, my little portfolio, and so we're about to break ground on the fifth one, which is a 70 site development in South Fort Worth here in a couple weeks too. So I'm excited about that one because we're going to make some money as general contractor, 20% GP, and we'll be running it through the property management company as well.
That's awesome. And you also, if any of my audience is in DFW, you run a biweekly or twice a month meetup, correct?
Once a month, second Wednesday of every month, Thirsty Lion in Euless. You can find us on Eventbrite, Facebook. We always try to push a lot. But anything RV park and land development related. So we've been averaging 20, 25 people the other first four times that we've done it. And it's just a lot of RV park owners. Usually there's a couple heavy hitters there, and there's also a lot of folks that are looking to do their first one. So I think it's really great just to be able to put people together like, hey, you're in the same boat as this person right here. Go be friends with them. So it's been good.
Sweet. So what has made RV park development the most attractive form of investing for you, right? I mean, I think everybody when they're getting into real estate starts looking at all the options, right? For me, it was simply I had no money to start, and I still wanted to make fast returns. So land was very attractive for me. That's why I got into it. Other people are doing long plays, appreciation strategies, flipping homes, building multifamily, all sorts of stuff. But you found this niche. Why is it so attractive?
I don't know. I've just always been different in everything that I do. Just never gone with the flow with anything. I haven't had a job since I was 20. I'm almost 40 now. Because I've always just done my own thing. But I've always been an enthusiast. I've always had a camper or motorhome, going to the lake, going on the river, music festivals and stuff. So I grew up in campgrounds, KOAs, and just different things. So I've always been in the field, and so I got my real estate license as an agent, and I knew that wasn't my deal. So I was trying to figure out like what's my path to investing because that's what I wanted to do. And so I was like, just started flirting with the idea with RVs, and I was like, what if we just started like a 10 site park, did something on 1 acre, something really small to kind of get my feet wet. And then that hobby just turned into an obsession, and just that's all I do, talk about all day, every single day.
So, is it optimized financially, or is it really just that interest, or is it maybe simpler in some ways than other sorts of development? Maybe explain what you like about it.
Yeah, it's simpler to me, because this is underground utilities, grading and paving, and then what you can do for your amenities. But at the end of the day, it's always an affordable housing solution as well. Like a lot of my
Hmm.
parks, do parks, and this is just a way of living where somebody can have their own trailer that's paid off and live somewhere at 400 bucks a month plus electric. So affordable housing, I definitely want to do more like resort style ones. I was looking at this one in Central Florida last week that was on a river and it had multiple pools and all kinds of amenities. Everybody's driving around in golf carts. It was like a redneck little Riviera. So I'm going to try my best to be a good partner and get that one. But I think the beautiful part is the affordable housing piece of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in any economy, you're going to have clients, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Especially all the doom and
So
gloom stuff we were looking at this year.
yeah, exactly right. So business is booming, unfortunately. So let's start with the land part.
Hmm.
Okay. I have had actually a number of people reach out to me and say, "Hey, can you find me land for an RV park?"
Hmm.
Um, and I just don't know enough about it. I mean, you're kind of always, I imagine, juggling not really having utilities but needing utilities, right? I mean, most cities aren't wanting these RV parks, so you're forced out to the county where maybe there's a little less access to utilities.
Hmm.
So I feel like, is it sort of a Goldilocks thing to find a property that qualifies and won't kill you on the infrastructure?
No, no. I think just having some key metrics out there, like it's the little things. Like it's an RV park, so you want to be next to a main vein. It's hyper local. Everything's like a 20-mile radius. Every 20-mile radius is like it's either a good spot or a bad spot for parks. So when you have like your first couple turns into the entrance where the proposed property would be, you want to make sure that that's very there's not low hanging trees. There's easy turns so somebody can I have a 43-foot fifth wheel, and if you just have a regular tight little residential street, it wouldn't work. So
Yeah.
people overlook that. A park that we're doing now, the turn into it, there's a self-storage across the street, and the neighbor is like, I've seen a dozen people mess up their campers on this turn right here, and they're building a
Mm,
park right there. So, so there's one key point, and then water is always the big guy because if you got enough
okay.
acreage, you can do septic. Worst case, you can do spray fields, and a mid-sized park, you need to set aside a couple acres for your spray. But water, if you don't have access to, mud water or some type of municipal, then you're drilling a well. And in Texas, Oklahoma, and a lot of states, it's 12 to 18 months just to get a permit. For no rhyme or reason, it's not difficult if you are successful in drilling the well, of course, but the permitting process, you have to count on waiting 18 months. And a lot of times the county doesn't want to give you a permit until they know that you can have access to water because what the hell are they giving you a permit for? So it causes
Yeah.
problems.
So can you explain that a little more? So you have to go, I'm guessing this is a more difficult application because you're serving a community on a well, so it's just much deeper. You're pulling more water, so you have to do an application to the state, or is it to the county?
TCEQ.
Okay.
Yeah, so the state and they just don't care. I mean, it's not more difficult. They have a little more requirements and the big thing is ultimately is that, you are liable if somebody was to get sick, so they make you have a licensed person test the water every month, but you're still technically liable if somebody does get sick. So it's just something to keep in mind, but it's just they just take
Hmm.
their sweet ass time, just 12 to 18 months for no reason. Doesn't
Really?
make sense. I had six people. They're like, it took me 13 months. It took me 15 months. I don't even know why. It would go 3 or 4 months before I can get them on the phone again. And they're like, oh yeah, yeah, everything looks good. We'll get back to you soon.
What a nightmare, bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So what are how do you determine like how large a well is going to need to be? Or I guess, are you needing to incorporate a civil engineer into every project at this scale? Um,
Sometimes the county will require it. And then it's really, I haven't done one. I've just had a lot of other people dig into it. Because if you're under 14 taps or less, it's a different
mhm.
class of water system. If you're 14 taps or more, then it's a public water system, like your own mud district type.
Mm.
So it's not crazy requirements. I haven't seen like all the specs. I just, experience with other folks and kind of was nosy on their projects.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Have you had civil engineers on most of the projects that you've done?
Yeah, half and half. Like
Okay.
some of the counties, especially in Texas, if there's 150,000 population or less, they don't have to do anything code related. So like places like Hill County, just a lot of counties, it's still the Wild West. So
Really?
I don't need an engineer to tell me where to put water lines. And we've
Yeah.
done probably about eight of them now. So it's like we usually, I don't know. We're just gonna leave it at that.
Okay. Sort of don't ask, don't tell scenario
Yeah,
in certain areas.
yeah.
Okay, I see. So if we're into underwriting, right? So say you find an area and you think, all right, maybe I could put an RV park here. Are you looking around at saturation? Like, are there other RV parks in the area? Are you looking at vacancies? Do you underwrite using the rates that other parks are charging? How do you go about making sure you have a lucrative deal?
This is where I think a lot of people miss the boat is you got to get anything and everything you can because it's not like apartment complexes where you have all the data. You
Hmm.
know, this, especially like Texas, non-disclosure state. Somebody recently sold the park. You don't know what they sold it for. Crexy acts like they have some comps, but you don't have any comps. You just got to have a gut feeling, and you got to look in that small town or that 20-mile radius, and then really dig into your comps and like who is that avatar client? Who's that person staying there? What do they look like? Are they a married couple in their 60s? Do they work at this plant? Are they windmill solar farm guys? Is it just straight up affordable housing or is it a destination? Because there's three different types of parks. There's a community, which is your monthly folks. There's a in transient, they're stopping here on the way to Disneyland, or you are your own destination, or you're on a lake or something like that. So really identifying what do you have to offer? What can you do different? What can you do better? What do people like? And really, is there a demand? Because there's not a
Hmm.
demand. I don't care what you do.
Right. Yeah. So are you building, off of those three classifications, are you building parks differently to accommodate those different client types?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Walk me through how would you develop one over another just based off the clientele? I'm assuming like transient, you're not going to have as many amenities, maybe, or maybe fencing, how beautiful it is. I don't know. What would be the distinction?
Yeah. So monthly, they're tired of their wives and their small ass RV showers. So you got to have adequate amount of showers. Wi-Fi for any park because it's 2026. You just got to spend the money on Wi-Fi and you got to do it right. And every company says they have great Wi-Fi, but you just gotta have great Wi-Fi regardless. But your monthly folks, you got to have adequate laundry because they're doing laundry. Maybe 5 or 10% of campers out there have washer and dryers on them. Um, and then 67% of the monthly folks have dogs, or really any RVers have dogs. So you got to cater to the adequate dog parks, or if you have a larger park, having multiple ones, not making somebody walk a quarter mile just to use your dog park because they're not going to use it.
Right.
So make it
Right.
user friendly. But if it's more in transient, then you're going to have a lot more people coming and going. So you want a more cleaner, better online booking, check-in process, with your automatic text messages so they can feel comfortable if they're coming in late at night and getting off the road. You're gonna typically have more, kids riding bicycles, people barbecuing. So if you have a park where it's monthly, but there's also some nightly fashion, you want to be able to separate them because it's two different, I wouldn't say classes of people, but two different avatar clients. The monthly people got off of work, they want to be left alone. The people there want their kids to go away while they're grilling some burgers and relaxing because they've been in the car all day.
Hmm. Is one of those usually, say, more profitable? Like short-term rentals, right, tend to be more profitable if they're full. So maybe the transient focused parks are going to be the most profitable because you can charge a higher nightly fee.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all that demand though. If
You're
you
right.
you got just like a rocking just destination type paired with the demands, and then that's when you can mix in cabins and different things. Like the park I was looking at in Florida, they had 350 RV sites, but they had 50 cabins, and the cabins were just booming just because every you could rent a golf cart ride around. There's all kinds of games and bingo and clubhouses and multiple pools, and it's on the river with canoes. So it was your own little paradise. So not everybody has an RV, or if your buddy has an RV, you still need a cabin too. So if we get that park, I'm definitely just adding more cabins because they're just booking like crazy.
Really? Yeah, because I mean, then you're almost classing into a new sort of investment, right? If it's not only RVs, if you're talking about adding, more amenities, additional rentable things, I mean, then you're kind of climbing into, I mean, like sort of a resort or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, just different type of hospitality.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm guessing, I mean, that'd be a lot more overhead, more staff to manage. So I think maybe that's
It's a different operation for sure.
right. You're kind of climbing out of real estate and into something more of a traditional business owner at that point. But I mean, is that what you're attracted to? Does that seem exciting to you to own something like that?
Well, just being part of something cool that I would take my family to is kind of neat, you know.
Yeah.
So that part's cool, but for me, I just look at because I don't really have a favorite. I just want to look at something that I know is a home run that makes sense. That if it's an acquisition, you're buying something, and then clearly because of their Google reviews and what you're seeing, they're missing the boat on some things that you can go in there, clean up their operations, and not turn it around or just improve it,
Hmm.
and turn a basic park into something really successful.
Is that your preferred? Would be to try to rehab a existing park, or do you prefer going, dirt up?
It depends. It really depends. Like Texas, there's so many secondary and tertiary like great markets, but there's a lot of saturation. You're seeing a
Hmm.
lot of counties, really hampering down on them because they're tired of parks being built. Like
Hmm.
Willis, Texas, north of Houston, said no more RV parks for 5+ years. We're not even going to look at them. Some counties around Lake Texoma, north side, they were talking about just, we're just going to stop parks for a little bit. You're seeing some changes and shifts in the environment. The big thing in Texas they were talking about uh, legislation wise is bring in the National Fire Code for RV parks. It's National Fire Code 1194 and incorporating that for every county as a bare minimum, which to
Okay.
me isn't a bad thing because it's 50 pages and it's all pictures and it's just fact. It's it's like your water spigot needs to be this many feet away from your camper. Your turning radius needs to be at least this. It's basic and it's when I was doing my first park, I was just like out there in the dirt and I was like, yeah, yeah, we can do that. It's just kind of like referencing that book a lot. So it's a good one.
Okay, so that would be increasing standards for all the parks, is what you're saying? They'd adopt that fire code, and um, I'm guessing you don't need wider roads. Do you need fire hydrants through a community like that?
No, a lot of times it's city or county requirements. So you technically don't, but the counties always want, to check with their fire marshal because they're like, we got 75,000 pound trucks and they just want to know for an emergency situation. They can get in there and they have access to water. So, but
Okay.
usually with the water spigots and them coming with a full truck, then that's usually pretty good because their fire hoses are, I think, 300, 200, 2 or 300 feet.
Hmm.
As long as you have water access, then it's not quite as necessary. But if you had a lot of amenities with a lot of buildings, then that's someone like, hey, we need to put some fire hydrants in here just in case something gets crazy.
Yeah, or detention pond or something like that, a tank. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, walk us through. I saw you, and I inquired about it. You're raising capital right now for a new venture, or maybe you already raised it. It seemed like you were well on your way. Can you talk to us a little bit about that deal? Maybe how you found it, what your strategy is. Just try to be granular. I mean, my audience really appreciates detail.
Mhm.
Um, you
Devil's in the
know,
detail.
yeah, exactly. So I would, we'd love to learn from your experience there.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's 70 site development, South Fort Worth. Um, we had some recent comps with a nearby park. The February of 2024 opened with 103 RV sites, and they were getting 800 to 1100 a month. The more expensive was covers, and they filled up in like 7 or 8 months. And
Yeesh.
so I was like, holy cow, like what is going on here? But what we realized is just being that close to the loop of this major metro area, there's just not really any parks. You have your old crackhead mobile home parks, Tweakervilles and stuff. Um, but you normally have to go farther out, like a county away, before you can have land that's developable, for a park. So this one was similar proximity, and I just felt like it would be home run in terms of a demand.
So is
So
this a new unit, or excuse me, new, or are you purchasing and rehabbing a development?
no, it's just a hayfield right now.
Okay, so you're starting at the very beginning,
Yeah,
and you
front
already
line.
have the. Well, actually, let's start all the way at underwriting, right? So you already talked a little bit about you see the demand, right? So you look at the comps, you're like, dang, that paints a financial picture, right? So
Mhm.
when you're doing a projection, I'm guessing you found this piece of land and you determine some sort of density or lot layout. How do you determine how many RV spots can be on a property?
Well, the partners they approached me about this because they're
Okay.
land entitlement guys. They're a big group, and they usually do like big mobile home parks, and then they'll get them entitled, and then they'll they'll sell them to them. But this guy, he's made some good money, and he wants to have some more ownership in it. So he's
Hmm.
like, all right, I'll get it entitled, um, and I'll put the equity in the land, and then you bring $400,000 to the table to kind of like your buy-in,
Hmm.
handle the loan, handle the construction and pretty much just run the show, and then we'll be partners.
Okay. So you got approached. That's always a good situation to be in.
Yeah,
And he already determined the density of the community.
yeah, yeah. Because he was already working on permitting. Because if he didn't partner with it, the land's a lot more valuable if like, hey, I got it entitled. Like, who wants
Hmm.
it? So that was the plan all along anyway. So they had a good one because they were planning to sell it. So I'm gonna put my little love and twist and touches on it. Once we get into the meat of it, but we already got it approved through the county. So, um, and it was like a pizza cutter kind of triangle shape. So
Hmm.
it made sense for a mid-sized 70 site park and just kind of like a horseshoe shape. And there wasn't too many variables on your layout that I would have thought of or suggested on this one.
Yeah, I do feel like most of the time the land dictates the layout. I mean,
Yeah.
people think you can get really creative, but ultimately, if you're optimizing for density or, returns, oftentimes there's really only one or two good ways to do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
um, y-
how do you avoid your low spots? If there's any water or drainage issues, and then how do you take advantage of any trees? This one has the half of the exterior tree, but it wasn't something that we could really take advantage of in terms of shade. 'Cause shade's a beautiful thing for RVs. People will just like they'll be the first to get
oh, yeah, sure. I didn't even think about that. I just was on a podcast this last week with a gentleman from Florida who he develops his home sites around the trees. He's always thinking, how can I incorporate? How can I incorporate? How can I incorporate that? But for you, I mean, on these much bigger projects, you probably are pretty much doing your own tree survey, saying let's dictate where we want these spots around the trees. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, people love it. They'll the first to get rented because these RVs, when it's 107 degrees in July, they're not rated for this. My brand
Hmm.
new or newer fifth wheel with three AC units, in the hottest day, it only gets down to 77 degrees. It doesn't get any cooler in there until the sun starts to go down. But yeah, so tree surveys are definitely the best. But we just got back from the construction conference and we were looking into our own equipment, the GPS little, doing the same
Oh
stuff
yeah.
surveyors do. And they're not as crazy like Topcom and Trimble. Like they're still 40, 50 grand, but there's a lot of other guys, Chinese, but still, you still have a tablet, upload your CAD files, and you can just walk around. I need to find this water spigot. Do, 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 do. So like one job we did an expansion that was a selling point. It was like, look, you don't have to pay for a tree survey. We don't have to have freaking $15,000 budget for surveyors to come out three, four times. We got this little pole that beeps at us and tells us what's going on. You have the layout, and we'll save as many trees as possible by using this software to where we don't have to break the bank at the same time.
Oh, that's cool. So you can upload the community, like the CAD renderings of the community, and it'll pinpoint it on the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah, elevation, and then with where your service is location and your pad locations and roads, you can use that with the tablet, and so it's pretty helpful because we this other project we just did, it was we probably spent $40,000 in survey guys coming out there with grade and elevation, and this thing was like 10,000 bucks to buy it and have
The one you're doing with Nick.
it. Yeah,
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 I mean that was my first thought when I went out there and I looked at like all the different things that had to be located. I was like, this must have sucked to sit out
yeah.
there because it's like,
I don't know how much we spent on surveying, but I don't want to look. I just refuse to look. It was bad.
and honestly, you probably want the person building to be the one doing that
Yeah.
because then you're going to identify things that maybe you want to move or whatever. Like you're going to be the one building it. And I find every time there's a layer of separation or some contractors coming in to do some step of service, that's when stuff's lost in translation.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
probably a really good thing to add.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna use the shit out of it. But like this one, the guy he didn't want to do a tree survey and was a bit rushed, the one we're currently doing. But he just gave me permission to save some trees. So like a lot of the RV sites were about 37 feet apart. And so I had permission, if there's a tree right here, we can physically move the site over before we build it, 7 feet if we could save a tree. So we were at about 156 sites, and there was 12 sites that we could move just a little bit to save some trees. So
That's beautiful. Yeah, give you a little bit of variance, a little control. Um, all right, so he approached you. He brought the deal. It was already papered up for you. You were able to give your input. Tell me, how do you financially project a project like this? We already talked about you did your comps and things like this, but for me, a simple land flipper, I'm looking at how much it costs. I'm going to try to double my money. But something like this, where you're generating rents, are you operating on a cap rate to make sure that it's a financially viable, or how do you make sure the numbers make sense?
yeah, so I think it's tricky to find banks and SBA loan banks or hard money guys that have an appetite for horizontal stuff like this because it's a projection based business. it's hopes and dreams.
Hmm.
You can't build it vertically, get an appraisal, and go about your business and get a loan. So because it's based off your lot dues,
Hmm.
uh, your rents. So I forget where I was going with that.
Yeah. So effectively, you're trying to. That's the conundrum, right? So you can kind of pin down what you could expect to make on your rents,
Hmm.
and then if it's going to cost me, I guess you can be. Is it like a 1 million, 2 million, $3 million development? How big is a 70 unit cost usually?
This construction budget, concrete pads, $100,000 clubhouse, decent amenities, asphalt roads was 1.5 million for 70
Okay.
sites.
All right. So you got a $1.5 million cost. You got an investor who's saying, give me my money back. So you, I guess, have to assume that there's kind of a spin up period, right? So you get the place built, and then you're going to have sort of a trickle flow of people, and maybe you're hoping to be stabilized in a year or 18 months, and then you're going to project for 5 year return, 10 year return. How do you make financial sense for an investor? Because like when I was looking at it, my first thought was I have no experience with this. And for me, that's most of the time that just means it's probably not going to go anywhere. But I'm always fascinated to see how these things are underwritten, right? Because once I get
Sure.
experience, all of a sudden it's unlocked for me.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely need to understand your holding cost and a lot of people, especially during the COVID years when there was a gold rush for just about every part of real estate, um, people are, oh yeah, it's just going to fill up really fast. So if you have a monthly park, say mid-size, large, whatever, and you get 8 people more every single month, that's extremely aggressive. So if you got 100 sites, it's going to take you, what is that, 14, 15 months to fill up. That's extremely uh, aggressive. Realistically, 3 to 5 more people every month to month if you have a good plan, good marketing, a good park put together. So you kind of put that in your pro forma because your holding costs, those $1.5 million loan is, 1% interest only payments. So you gotta, that's a couple $100,000 right there because it takes you 6, 7 months to build something like this. And in a good world, in a very wet season, it could take you 9 months,
Yep.
and then your ramp up stage as well. So gotta
Yeah.
incorporate.
Yeah. So you build a master spreadsheet, and then you look for saturation. And are folks usually trying to get their money out of it in a certain time period?
Yep. Yeah, we got a financial model with the waterfall for, how the debt's going, cash flow's going with the different partner stuff. So I'd be happy to share a copy with that with you if you'd like.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be sweet.
Somebody
Um,
smart put that together, but I just now I got a template.
that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, every chance I get to look at to see how somebody's underwriting a deal, because Um, sometimes you develop bad habits and don't even know it until you look at what somebody else is doing.
I can't
Um,
even think about that.
right. So in a 70 unit development, is that going to be phased, or is it going to be straight to completion from the beginning?
Th this one's definitely just 100 miles an hour because just
Hmm.
the way that it's structured and how our things are painted out, it's just we're just gonna go crazy, knock the thing out in 6 months, do it right. But a lot of them you could do in phases, and it's definitely smart to, maybe
Hmm.
156 site one we're doing. We're getting phase one, 56 sites open, but we're just gonna keep continuing to phase two. But the way this owner is that he can get open, and we're not even done with phase one yet. He's already got 5 people in there, so I don't know how that's going to work. But we, we haven't even finished yet. We just got the power on, and so I don't know. That's another story, but
That's wild. Okay, well that makes sense, right? Phase it out. That can really help with your cash on cash returns if you can kind of cycle that money a little bit and the
yeah.
development costs. Um, and walk us through the development process. I mean, obviously you go through entitlements. That's usually going to be with the county. But when you're actually starting construction, I'm guessing you go survey first, and then the big machines roll out. Do you do extensive grading, or do you try to like maintain the topography as it is?
Depends on the project for sure. So like
Okay,
this
what are
one
you looking for?
um, I'm looking for is to just make sure it's built correctly because even engineers will, give their opinions on stuff and so I guess it's kind of not something I'm looking for specifically, but
Hmm.
just understanding what you're getting into,
Okay.
because that could seem a lot simpler, and you get into it, and you're like, oh shit, this changed things. So like this one that we're currently doing, it's 18 acres, 156 sites. They had us take 4 feet of dirt, probably about 15,000, 20,000 tons from the south side of the property, put it on the north side of the property, and then slope down the middle of it to where it goes to these detention ponds. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like
Easy.
just buy a different piece of land where you don't have to spend a month just moving that amounts of dirt. It was just to me, I'm just gonna leave that one alone. But the
Right.
76 we're doing, it already has a natural slope towards a flood zone that's a ways away. So we're gonna all we need is go in there with a dozer for 3 days, and then there's just like a couple little low spots, little windrows, and so we just need to smooth it out, and then we'll erosion control, start working with the county for the entrance, and then just get to digging. I think it's about 7,000 feet with water, sewer, and electric lines, and so we'll just have a trench war zone going on for a few months.
Yeah, I imagine there's a huge benefit to being a longtime operator, right? You go out there, you're looking at the ground, and you know. Whereas
Yeah.
a lot of people, with if they're just used to looking at GIS maps and spreadsheets, they'll think, "Oh, it's no problem. You just run a road right through there," and they have no idea the cut and fill that goes into it or the natural drainage of the property. Especially, a lot of the rural investors, myself included, I've done it. Um, you don't do a topographical survey, and so you might pull up like the topo map, but that's not very accurate. There's like 10-foot grades, and um, so you can really get burned. I mean, a 5-foot elevation change, or a 10-foot elevation change is dramatic when you're talking about shoving around dirt.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so I mean, that's probably just a huge benefit of working with you in any capacity, right? If you're able to get your eyes on the dirt, the slope. I mean, you could modify the plans that the civil engineer draws up and save a ton of money just by moving the roads from one spot to another, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've made a lot of mistakes.
That's the
Learned
best
a
way to
lot.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like with the grading and paving side is that like normally you do like say 5 inches of road base and either do your concrete, asphalt, or gravel. Um, so it's really important is that the engineers don't talk about a lot is that you want the natural undisturbed earth in your roads and your pads to be flush because if not, if you just have the same elevation, you add 6 to 8 inches of your gravel and your material, then you have a little hump, which is sucks for rain. And then you
Yeah.
everything so. So you got to incorporate that the amount of time that it takes to move up that dirt and to make it flush. So when it does rain, it flows over the road, and they don't really talk a lot about that. So that gets overlooked a lot.
Hmm.
Next, oh, you just build all these roads and pads, and then there's like all these drainage issues.
Yeah,
It's
nobody wants to run their RV through,
yeah,
or have a pad site that's buried by a foot of water after one of these crazy downpours.
yeah, ruts
Um,
issues.
so as far as utilities, all right, so you did your underwriting, you went through entitlement, you've done what grading you need to and avoided as much as you hoped to. And then you start cutting in utilities. Is that next? You're going to run your water, power, and sewer.
Yep.
What goes first? Maybe walk us through this. I haven't actually had anybody on the podcast walk me through um, the
Yeah.
utility side of things. So the sewer lines, usually those are how deep?
It definitely depends on the layout because your tanks should only be so deep the way that they're rated, and you have two options. Either you have to have a natural slope, which is an eighth to a quarter inch per foot, or you have to install some lift stations that they're freaking 5 to 10,000 bucks each
Yeah,
one. You don't
not
have,
cheap.
yeah. So you
Yeah.
want to naturally avoid those. So
Hmm.
your farthest, most difficult one, you can only be a foot deep sometimes. So that's why in terms of what's in order is a lot of times the power company will have us do their primary power. And a lot of times we'll start with that first because you can go 5 or 6 feet deep. They're deeper the better for them. So you can get
Hmm.
the deep stuff out of the way. And then we can usually do water next because that's, 36, 40, 42 inches a lot of times what they want. Um, at least 2 feet, but that's controlled and we know where we did this, we know where we did that. The variable is the sewer. So then we usually do that next, and then your electrical, you only need to be 24 inches deep. So that's usually sitting on top where the water would be whenever they have to
Hmm.
cross. So the path of least resistance, and we always end up with electrical last.
Okay, interesting. So there's a predictable strategy for
Yeah,
that.
spider web.
Right. And then you're going to do pad sites, right? Are you going to do concrete or gravel, or is that just depending on sort of what kind of rents you're hoping to get?
Yeah, it depends on the market. You know, like
Okay.
what class of park you're doing. Like if you're in a kind of a rural area, all the RV parks are gravel and
Hmm.
there's really not any benefits to concrete. I mean, like, you're talking $8 to $10 a square foot. Asphalt could be $7 a square foot. Chip seal could be $3, $4 a square foot. Gravel could be $1.75 a square foot. So you don't want to overbuild your park for something that doesn't make sense. If you
Right. And that's going to
just want to
go,
spend money on amenities. Don't spend them just on concrete if it doesn't make sense.
right. Because that's going to go all the way to the end of the project, which is what rents you're going to be collecting, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So that makes sense. And how big are the pads usually?
Minimum 12 feet wide by 60, 65, but there's all kinds of ways to do them. You just want to be able to have about 2/3 of campers have two cars. So
Hmm.
you do parking spots and 45-foot space at least for your camper RV at a minimum. But then there's all kinds of things you could do, like create a little porch. So whenever they park it, you want to make sure that they have plenty of room to be comfortable on a rainy day. So they're always different. It's kind of funny, but
Well, that kind of gives you an opportunity to add flair to it, right? So you can design each pad a little bit. And I guess, I mean, technically, you could probably add different pad amenities, right? And charge different rents depending on what's there. Have you dabbled in
yeah,
that at all?
yeah, fire rings, picnic tables, pergolas, those type of deals. My favorite one is in Port Aransas. They built a new one. And so all RVs, utilities are on your driver's side. Your doors are always on your passenger side. This is where you grill, you hang out, all that stuff. They put like this grill and pergola will cover on the other side. It's like nobody does that. They came from a different industry or something, uh, but yeah, it definitely makes a big difference. If you got some shade and then they can grill and hang
Yeah.
out, if they're playing, then that's definitely a bonus.
Okay.
Fire,
And then,
firing at night, with your lawn chairs hanging out right there.
mhm. And you mentioned amenities. What are the best return amenities that you can put in? Something that will raise your rents but not kill you in maintenance.
That's a tough one. I think it goes back again to who's that avatar guest that you're trying to attract that you believe is going to come. And then and once you define them, the imaginary person becomes your friend and you know exactly who they are, then you just give them what they want. But amenities are weird. Like your in transit people, they're like, we're gonna go because we're gonna stay at this place because they have a great dog park, or they're shopping online,
Hmm.
So to me, it's like whatever amenities that you could show off that even if you don't think is an amenity, just advertise it because people make the weirdest buying decisions where to stay based off of that. And so they're like, oh, we're going to stay there because it has this, and that. And they get there and stay for 2 nights and they never leave their camper. The amenities brought them in, but they never even used it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing is just understanding, the decision making that folks are doing.
Yeah, and it's all perceived value, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's always the case. If they feel like there's a variety when they're there, even if they don't use it, they still feel like they had access to it.
Yep.
Okay, so you got the pad sites down, you put in a couple amenities, and then you're open for business. I mean, is this a passive industry? Or, is everything run through an app, or do you need people that are on site? What's it look like to operate something like this?
Regardless, any park that you have, small or big and large, whatever, you got to have your on-site people. There's always a breaker that's going to be flipped, or somebody gets in late, they don't know where to go, and there's always some issues. Somebody's dog got out, or there's a neighborhood dog that come over here and we got to run them off, or just weird stuff that happens. So depending on what your park looks like, you got to have your on-site people for sure.
Hmm.
Everybody wants online booking, so you got to have that available for sure in your online presence. And it's kind of funny because with all this talk about AI, there's a lot of parks that are using, AI for the receptionist. Is to me, there's like half of usually baby boomers, but they just want to freaking talk to somebody, ask how the weather's doing, where's a good place to go eat over here. And the other half of people are like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Can I just check in by myself and I don't have to talk to a human?
Hmm.
So just catering to them, you know what I mean? It's the best that you can to make them comfortable and keep them coming back.
Yeah, so that goes right back to your avatar of who your client is, I suppose.
Yep.
Um, and then maintenance. I mean, I guess if you build something new, you're not going to be getting killed on. everything breaking all the time, but um, maybe that's different on some of these refurbished parks or, something you purchased.
You just want to get all your ducks in a row because nothing good ever happens or good in business when you're reactive. So you want to be proactive. There's going to be some water spigot repair, somebody backed into it or something. Somebody burnt up a breaker with their RV plug, or some idiots messed up your shower and broke some stuff on the sink or something. So you want your general maintenance guy, a little bit of plumbing guy, have somebody that you can call for any electrical issues or something. Understand what your on-site people's capabilities are. For like, hey, if it's an old man and there's a water leak, he's not digging it up. But if there's something where he could just, change a faucet or something, he's got that all day. So really understanding that and then making those calls ahead of time to who you're going to call once that electrical issue happens.
Okay. So, all right. So then it's not definitely not a passive industry, but it's maybe not as bad as running an apartment complex, maybe somewhere in the middle there, you think?
Somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
because it's still dealing with people and people are crazy. At one park, and there was this nicest old man. I thought he was a good person, and he was the biggest con artist I ever met in my life. He would like anytime somebody would come, he would try to like work a deal with them and sell them something. I'm like, dude, just get the hell out of my park. He was gonna buy this other camper from me, and he made all these promises, and then took somebody's money. I'm like, what the hell? Just go away, old. I'm like, it was the weirdest shit. Weird stuff, dude. Squatters. Just
Oh, yeah.
come across weird stuff. They're like, "What did I thought I paid?" Like, bitch, you didn't pay. Like, you need to pay or get the hell out of the park.
Oh, actually, I didn't even think about that. Is there an eviction process you have to go through? What happens if people don't pay and won't leave?
It's county specific, so we always try to, approach the county. Hey, how do you want to handle this? Because anytime you respect them, they'll be more helpful usually. So like one
Hmm.
county is like, we want you to spend $17, send this form to the court, take a picture that you put a notice on the door after 2 weeks. We'll send a constable if you need some help towing their shit out of there. But they're all a little different. But technically, you want to have them give a month-to-month side agreement, so where there's not, you're just renting a parking spot. So there's no tenancy, there's no eviction, like legally and technically.
Hmm.
Um, this is when you're told to leave, you need to leave kind of deal.
Well, I guess that's a big benefit because the number of people I know who have gone through nasty evictions and just don't want to ever get into real estate again. I mean, that's like nightmarish. I don't want to ever be in that situation.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
okay, well, we're nearing the end here. Thank you so much for walking us through everything. Is there anything else you want to mention or any things that folks should be looking out for specifically in this industry? Or maybe if people find deals, how can they bring them to you? How can my audience serve you?
Yeah, just if there's, because I get naturally, several times a month, somebody's looking to build their first park or add an acquisition and trying to figure out what to do because there's always weird situations and trying to find opportunities. So if there's ever an RV park acquisition or development question issue or something, I answer my DMs, my phone calls, and happy to help. Because anytime the more you give, the more you get. So the more helpful
Yeah,
I am, deals just keep showing up and the opportunity keeps coming. So I just try to be helpful, and then. If they want to hire us for construction, hell yeah. If they want to partner because they don't know what they're doing, or if they just had a couple of questions, it's all the same to me. You just keep helping folks, and good things happen.
awesome. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Jason, so much for your time. Man, this was great. I had zero knowledge starting this, and now I feel like I could just go build one right now.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
problem.
you got it. Got it.
um, awesome. Folks, remember if you need any funding for your land flips, land entitlement projects, land development projects, reach out to me. Check me out at landpartnerfunding.com or email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. Jason, thank you again, folks. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.